I'm going to run through as many questions as I can. I'll try to be brief. Appreciate you giving the questions, doing the questions. This is such a high-tech church. I normally have people write them on cards, and then I just read them. That's like a dinosaur. This is cutting edge. I like it. Okay, let's start with the first question, which I think is a beauty. Okay. Hey, Dave, you can read it. Hey, Dave, if we have couple talk 4 days a week, will us guys out there have physical time 4 times a week as well? I was looking over Bob Bauer's shoulder as he texted this. I'm just saying. I thought it was inappropriate. Anyway, the simple answer is yes. I'm telling you. Now, I can't guarantee it. But this guy's on the right track. You see, if you give, can you imagine what would happen if you give your wife these, and you're really giving it to yourself too, these 4 couple talk times a week? The intimacy, the connections. See, a woman cannot be warmed up for sex and really enjoy and give herself to you like you want her to if she has to start from 0 and there's no warming up and there's no connection with you. You have the body of a Greek god. We know that's true. But she wants to feel close to you. So most guys will not say anything about sex, and then it's 9:30, 10 o'clock, and midnight, and you're in bed, and she's in the bathroom getting ready for bed, doing whatever they do. We don't want to know. And they're in there. And she comes out, and you're patting the pillow. Hey, honey, it's your lucky night. And, of course, what she does, she goes, I was so glad you said that, big boy, just dives on you. Like they do in the movies. I don't think so. She's shocked. She's not prepared. We haven't talked for 2 days. Who needs talking, honey? So if you prepare her with the talk times, I'm telling you what, your sex life is going to go up. It will. Now, next question. When I use the I feel blank when blank statement, my husband does not validate my statement. What can I do? We're going to have a conversation with this man. In fact, we're going to have it right now since he's out there somewhere. There's some kind of a block, and men have trouble in communication. And we're going to have to train this man. And again, you don't give him too hard of a time. You're not going to be rude to him or offensive or disrespectful, but he's not a man that reflects. I mean, every man here has to, women have like a PhD in emotional intimacy. You have a 3rd grade education, typically. So we've got to they're just better at it. They talk, they connect. And I'm giving a talk on communication tomorrow, but the little gist of this is going to be you have to learn how to reflect when the woman is talking, right? And what that means is don't ever listen in silence because she'll think you're not listening and she'll keep talking. There's no end to the talking. I'm not sure Dave's listening. Let me tell the same story again from a slightly different angle. Don't go there. So when she's talking, and this is whenever she's talking, especially in the talk time, you want to feed back what she's saying, key words and phrases for content as well as emotion. You're saying this, honey, and you're feeling this. Now, this man's not doing that, all right? It may be just as simple as, okay, sure, you want to train him in that way, and again, offer the man the payoff, all right? Sex. I'm just kidding. You're gonna say, look, I will love you more. I will respect you more. I will be drawn to you more. I mean, our relationship will improve. A happy wife does mean a happy life. And so you're offering him this, and when he does it, you're going to be very thankful. Men thrive on praise. You're going to praise him and thank him for doing it. When he doesn't do it, you're going to have to, this lady's going to have to, in a one-way fashion, express that because it hurts. Honey, you did not reflect. When I shared my feelings, I feel when blank, you didn't really respond. That hurts me, it offends me, I'm bothered by it. I just want you to know that. I want you to work on this. I just want you to hear it and then just drop it and walk away. He might begin to process on this. So we're trying to shape his behavior over time. A lot of men aren't good at this. You know that it's going to take us some time to get the principles down. That's what I'd say about that. Next. As parents who have been very involved in our children's activities, how do we transition into empty nesters? Very good question. Sandy and I are on the cusp of the empty nest. So the answer is, who cares about your kids? Are you kidding me? It's over. You know, it's kind of weird, and we're having this experience now. William is 18, and he's the last man in the house. 3 girls are gone, last kid, and so he's gone a lot anyway. And as he began to, he's got a car, and so he's doing his thing, and he has no use for us because we're old and don't know anything. And so he's doing his thing. And so we have had a lot more free time. And it is kind of weird. You have to think, because you're always thinking about the kids and you're always doing for them. And typically your relationship can suffer along the way. You're not quite as close as you'd like to be. So it's something you just have to talk through, because it is a pretty big transition to all of a sudden have the time and the space that you're not used to having. So have some conversations about this. You're going to miss them. One of you is going to miss them. I shouldn't say that. Of course, you love your kids and being with them all the time and loving on them. So you're going to miss them. And you're going to have some conversations about what is it going to be like? How do we structure our life? Because now we have more time. This will be more time together, of course. All right? And now it might be, and you might have to admit this is going to be kind of awkward. This has happened. You love each other, but you may not be all that intimate because of the kids. It's really their fault. I mean, you spent more time with them than you should have. So without blaming them, okay, we're going to have a transition now. This is going to be, we need to have the couple talk times, and it's going to be awkward at first. Let's go out on a date. You're going to be in a process of probably reconnecting on a deeper level. This is fun, but it's going to be a little awkward, all right? So expect there to be some awkwardness and some long silences, and you're just trying to get into the saddle. But overall, it's a wonderful time. This is what I'm looking forward to, all right? Now, we've built our marriage along the way, but it will be different to not have William anywhere in the house. I have plans for the blonde, my friends. Plans. And you probably can't imagine what that's going to mean. So, how do I begin to open my heart to love the same person who betrayed me? Yeah, boy, what a question. Yeah. When you've been burned in a very serious way by your partner, there is no substitute for the two of you going through a series of steps of healing. Quick forgiveness, even if you mean it, is not going to get the job done. We have to reconnect. So you might want to look at my book, I Don't Want a Divorce. There's a whole section there on going through the steps of trauma recovery. You have been traumatized. Now you are staying married, and God is going to honor you for that. But it will never be the same. And you'll limp along to the finish unless you take the right steps. And what that means is turning. And the first phase is not really about the marriage. It's about healing from what this person did. All right? Husband or wife that betrayed you, let's say it was an affair. It sounds like that might be the case. Well, then you're going to have to directly face that issue. And the way I do it is pretty unorthodox, but I believe it's biblical and it works. Of course, the affair has to end, and the whole story has to be told. There's only one person in the world that has a right to know all those details other than the sexual, gory details, and that is the person who you're married to. They have to be told the whole story. This will be a series of conversations over many weeks and months. The whole story is told. I actually have the person that's done the betrayal or whatever the serious sin is write out the story of the affair. Can you imagine what that's like? It's painful, but it's confession of sin, and they read it in my therapy office. Man alive. Someone who will do that is really trying to help their husband or wife heal. You can hear a pin drop, and it's extremely intense, but it's necessary. You have to face the sin. If you don't know what happened, you will always wonder what happened. And what you wonder might actually be worse. You will never forgive. You will never truly trust. So it's turning and facing it directly. You harm me. And keep in mind, whoever committed the sin, it's all on you. You have to own 100% of that sin. Don't go where some books would like you to go, where you blame your partner for what you did. No, you did it. Maybe the marriage wasn't good. Maybe she wasn't the perfect wife or the perfect husband. It doesn't make any difference. You have to own it all. I did this. I had other choices. I sinned. It's on me. And that helps. So the healing phase is difficult. Conversation after conversation, you let the wounded person ask questions. There are no bad questions. And vent feelings. It's over and over again. It's hard. It's brutal, but it works. You are bearing the past. You're working it through. I have the victim of the affair, let's say it's an affair, the serious sin, actually write out a response to what happened. And they read that in my office, and it is powerful, gut-level stuff. But that's working towards forgiveness. You don't forgive like that. You forgive over time. There's intellectual forgiveness of I can forgive you, the Bible tells me to, but emotional forgiveness, totally different animal. That comes through hard work. Now keep in mind, as you're doing this work, you're healing, trust is building, God's blessing you as you do it. But at the same time, you're really connecting on a deeper level. Can you see that? These conversations, although horrible and very intense, are incredibly intimate. And so if you can have these discussions and survive and begin to thrive through it, then you have really connected on a deeper level. So actually, you are already changing the marriage. Once the healing is well on its way, then we shift the focus to the marriage. We're going to rebuild the marriage too. You can't be left with the same old marriage you had before. It will always remind you of the betrayal. So we're building the marriage. That's when the other partner, the wounded one, actually comes into play too. She's made mistakes. Let's say it's the wife. She's made mistakes too. And so we look at both people, that second phase, not first phase, and then we start to heal. It is a very tough road that I take couples down, but I've seen it work literally hundreds of times, and it will work for you too. What is the number one mistake couples make in a marriage that we don't even realize we're making? Oh man, what a great question. I would have to say, I'll give you two. I would say number one would be this lack of spiritual intimacy. I see it over and over. We made the mistake. We didn't even know we were doing it. Nobody had ever told us from the pulpit, from the books we read, from our own parents. They'd never said you need to spiritually bond. You have to talk about your spiritual lives and pray together. Well, we've never heard it, and so we weren't doing it. We were told to have a Christian marriage and follow Christian principles, but we weren't told to spiritually bond. I'd say that's number one. And without that, everything dies anyway. I'd say number two is just the lack of meeting needs. Your job as a husband is to meet the needs of your wife, the needs that only a husband can meet. And most guys want to do that, but they have no idea what her needs are. And so you have to ask, and the woman has to be very clear with her needs, and then you go through a series of steps, and it's a lifelong thing sometimes. You're always trying to meet those needs. And the wife needs to meet the needs of the husband, and that's probably not happening. He's got to be clear with his needs, vulnerable, and she's got to really work towards meeting those needs. Sometimes those are able to change over time as well as you get older and kids leave, so you've got to be upfront and honest about your needs. It's the unspoken things that just kill you. If Sandy's not meeting one of my very important needs, and I say nothing to her, or I use coded messages and I drop hints, but she doesn't really know, she's not going to meet that need, I'm going to resent her, I'm going to pull away from her, she doesn't even know. I have to give her a chance. And if I'm not meeting one of her needs, I need to know what that is. It's obvious to her, but I don't know. So being honest about that, I think is the second mistake, not being completely honest. You're not honest, you do pull away, the marriage dies, and that's when Satan does his best work. He's going to bring someone into your life or some situation or some addiction that he's going to draw you out to with the promise that that will meet your needs. Of course it won't, it will destroy you, but he's awfully good at what he does. If you're close and you're getting needs met in marriage, he still tries. He never quits trying, but he's not going to be successful. Let's keep going. Here's a good one. This is often the case. I am frustrated by my husband's lack of sexual desire for me. He has struggled with porn, and I have had an affair in the past. What can I do? Okay, this is a loaded question, but it's a very good one. We've got two things we're going to have to work on. We've got the pornography, which is betrayal, and the Bible says it's just like having an affair. In God's eyes, no difference. Practically speaking, I guess it's worse to actually have slept with someone. However, God says same category. And she's also had an affair. So I'd say to this couple, everything's happening now because I'm betting they have not healed from these previous mistakes. They are sorry for them. It's obvious that they're out in the open. We know what's happened, but I'll bet they haven't gone through the specific steps that I just described. There's no way you can get to where you want to go if you don't do that work. So you have to turn and make very sure that you have worked through those issues. You see, it's the working through of the issues that heals, leads to forgiveness, which leads to trust, which leads to respect, which leads back to love. So work through those things, and I would just go one at a time. In my way of thinking, because the Bible teaches it, the husband goes first, right? He's had the pornography problem. Okay, he'll step forward, man up, and go, I'm going to help. You can't do both at the same time. I'm going to help you heal from what I did pornography. He will tell her everything he's done, chapter and verse. Time of day, what kind of pornography. You don't get into the gory details. Like with an affair, you don't talk about exactly what the sex was like. You go into categories. I went to these kind of websites. I went for this length of time. I saw these kind of things. Painful? You better believe it. But there's no way to heal if you don't say that. If I don't know what you did, I can't forgive you for what I don't know. So we'll do that first. Then we'll shift over to her affair. We have to work through that. That may have been in response to his pornography. We don't know. We got to work through that. And along the way, connections are being made. And I'm telling you what, the love is coming back even as you do that work. Then you have a foundation in which to go into the marriage work where you're actually going to be able to bring the love back. What Satan does, and he's a master at this, he's pulled this man into pornography, and it's epidemic levels in this country and internationally. Satan has made it totally accessible. And wouldn't you know it, free. Thank you, Satan. He's ruining us as men. And women's numbers are also coming up. So you get pulled off into that will kill your desire for your wife. She can't compete with these sluts and the whores that are in these movies or on the internet. And I don't say that harshly, hopefully, because they're not horrible people, I guess, but they're involved. They're tools of Satan. We hope that they come to Jesus and they leave that industry. Some great stories of women who have gotten out of it. But it's such a horrible area when you're drawn into that, you don't have no use for your wife. And you forget she's so beautiful and she's an actual live woman. So work through these issues and then first, and then you're going to move to the marriage part, and you're going to get the love back, especially with the spiritual bond. Let's keep going. Oh, we're good on time. Who should be in charge of parenting in a blended family? Good question. Should both the biological parent and the step-parent be equal? Good question, and the answer is no. I've never seen that work. Tricky situation, the blended family. I believe Fred is going to be handling this tomorrow in one of his sessions. But I've never seen it work where the step-parent can be in charge, even if the man, to be in charge and to call the shots. I've never seen that work. Here's what I think works. Biological parent, now your marriage first is always number one in the home. A lot of blended couples make this mistake. You're too tied to your kids, like you're more tied to your kids than you are to your new spouse. This cannot be the case. They will blow you away. They will win. They're not trying to break you up. Now, some are, but they'll end up breaking you up because kids know if they're more important. So you set the standard right away. This is the gold standard. Our marriage is more important. And if your kids actually would say, and some will when they get older, I'm rejecting you, Dad, Mom, unless you choose me, unless you don't stay with your spouse or I don't get my way, then you have to say, whatever. You do what you have to do. I'm with this person now. Marriage is sacred. Having said that, the template I like to follow and teach my clients in these blended families, and by the way, blended families can work and work beautifully. It's harder, but it can be done. The biological parent has the final say with their biological child. It does not work from the child's point of view if the step-parent comes in and tries to be too heavy-handed and makes the decisions. There'll always be tremendous resistance there. So when the child makes a mistake, and you're ready for this because you've already practiced, all right? Child makes a mistake, all right? If the biological parent is there, fine. Even if you're there, you always consult now with your partner. There's always consulting first. You put the kid on hold. I don't care if it's your biological kid. You've made a mistake. I'm going to talk to Larry. I'm going to talk to Betty before we have the discipline, because you always want to have two heads together. You will always have the conversation. And in that, God's probably going to lead you a lot of the time to the right decision together. Full input from both partners. Full input from the step-parent. I think I'm objective. I'm trying to give you advice and guidance. Full input from the biological parent, and then you make a decision, all right? But if you disagree, and you have to make a decision pretty quickly, then it's the biological parent that gets to break the tie, even if that is the woman. I think that works. It demands a lot of the man in that case to back off. You've had your full input. But when you come out of the bedroom, you've made a decision, it has to be lockstep. The kids have to believe we've made this decision together. Now, kids are pretty smart. They know your weaknesses. They probably know which one maybe won the argument, but it's not about winning. You are now together on this, and you've got to bring that unity. If you're at home and the step-parent's at home and the biological parent is not and the kid acts out, again, if you can reach the biological parent, you do so. Text, phone, whatever. Try to reach them. Something's happened. What would you suggest? And the biological parent can make the decision. If you cannot reach them and you have to do something, then you discipline in the name of the biological parent. I believe that your father or your mother would want this to be done. You see, that protects you in the relationship. I'm doing what I think your mom or dad would want me to do. So that's what I would say. There's some steps you have to go through maritally to get this to work. But again, I wouldn't, if you're the step-parent, you don't step in and take charge. You'll be hated, literally hated and resisted by the kids that aren't yours biologically, and the whole thing will collapse. So we're together, we share our opinions, and we have full input, but the biological parent breaks the tie if you disagree. That's what I say. How do I get through to my spouse that their health matters? Boy, this is a good one. How frustrating is it, and this person's living this, to love someone and it's your spouse and they're not taking care of themselves and maybe their diet's wrong, they have some disease issue, they're not addressing it, and you've talked to them and they refuse to listen. A couple things I'd do. You may have already done a few of these, but let's try it again. You will have a very serious heart-to-heart discussion with that person. I would say, honey, I've got something very important to discuss. They probably know what it is. It's my health again? You don't say. But 3 days from now, I'm going to have a very important discussion with you, and I want you to think and pray about what it's going to be about. I'll think and pray, and then we're going to have the discussion. And if there's kids in the house, they're out. This is a very serious come-to-Jesus meeting. And so when you sit down, you're going to say, honey, and this is a one-way conversation. We don't have a dialogue. If you're dialoguing with someone who's resisting you, you have already lost. They know their lines. You'll say the same things. They'll go, no, this, that, the other. It's a waste of time. So this time we're going to do it different. You're going to say, honey, I'm going to talk for maybe 10 minutes, maybe 15. I have a presentation to make. You don't have to have PowerPoint, but you're just going to share. And you're going to say some of the same things you've always said, but this time there can't be an edge of anger or frustration. You are being tried to be compassionate and loving. You are very concerned about their health. You explain it and you say, look, let me talk. I won't even listen to your response. Don't have a response. I want you to think about this. I want you to process it. If this is a man you're talking to, he'll love that. He doesn't want to talk anyway. So let him just sit there. And then you'll say, I'm going to talk. I want you to think and pray for the next week about what I'm going to say. Honestly, without any response. And then a week from now, I want you to find me, and I want to hear your response. Now, that could be the same response you've always got, but now you have a chance because you've not had the immediate knee-jerk defensive reaction, which the person always gives. Now we have a chance to have some resonation, and maybe he actually will think and pray about it. He's not doing that right now. You know it, and probably he knows it. Let's say it's a man. If he'd actually think for a week, if he'd actually pray over the course of a week about his health, what's God going to tell him? You're going to heaven anyway. Eat whatever you want. Of course not. Or keep not working on your diabetes. No, God's going to say to him what you've been saying. Your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. I want you to be around. Your dear wife, let's say it's the wife, is concerned about you. That's what he's going to hear. And then he'll own it himself. He won't do it because you want him to do it. It's pretty obvious. Now we put him in the case where listen to God. And you'll ask him, what is God saying to you? If we can get him into that category, then it can begin to change. If you don't get a response, then I think intervention is a good idea. We go to the next level. In effect, let's say it's a man, he is sinning by not taking care of his body. The Bible's clear on this. It's the body, it's the temple of the Holy Spirit. So you will, and you'll let him know ahead of time, I love you, I'm concerned, and this is the first level of confrontation. It says in Matthew 18, I'm dealing with you face to face. No one will ever have to know, it's private, and you will do anything to help the person, of course, change. You're on board. If he refuses, well, then you're going to go to the next step. The Bible says 1 or 2 witnesses. You're going to find friends of his. If it's a guy, find 1 or 2 men that have the guts to come alongside you, and you will surprise them. Oh, it's Bob and Larry here. I guess they want to watch the game with you. And they'll come in, and we surprise them, and that's not going to be pleasant. It's like an alcoholic. It's an intervention. It happens to be a health issue, all right? They will come in, and you've gotten your ducks in a row, and they will confront your husband. You might be sitting there, you might not be. In fact, if it's the woman, you might want to be out, but you know what they're going to say. Your wife has talked to us, obviously. We're concerned about you. Man to man, that can make a big difference. We will do whatever to help you. We've had our own issues here, but we're concerned about you, and so now we are asking you to make changes. And you get men that will not just say it and leave, but will stay in your lives and help the man change. This would be like gold. If he doesn't respond to that, it's entirely appropriate, according to Scripture, to go to the church. You will find a church leader, a pastor on the staff. You will explain the situation. I've gone through the other confrontations. Maybe a pastor coming alongside, lovingly but firmly, could make a difference. So we try these steps. You'll still love the man. And if he continues to be stubborn and does not take care of himself, well, then you're going to have to tell him there's a price to pay here. I'm staying with you. I'm going to love you the best way I can. But this is such an important issue, it's going to affect our relationship. My respect for you, my love for you, I'll do my best, but it won't be what it could be. He needs to know there's going to be something that's going to happen. That's what I say about that. I have quite a bit to say. My wife is having an affair. She refused to pray with me about it. Not good. She has filed for divorce, even worse, and won't speak to me. Well, this lady's gone. Is there anything I can do to save my marriage? I say yes. She is involved in serious, and I guess it's serious, ongoing sin. Satan has got her, and he's got her by the throat, doesn't he? He's shaking her. She's got a bunch of resentments in her life, and she's angry at you, I would say, and she is now justifying what she's doing. That's what we all do in sin, don't we? I'm not going to justify what I'm going to do. We have to get her attention. That's what Matthew 18 was written for, 15 through 17. I'd buy the book. I don't want a divorce. There's a section there that will tell you exactly what to do. What you're going to do is you're going to confront her individually. And you've probably done that already, but do it again. This is unacceptable. You're having an affair. I'm furious. I'm angry. I'm asking you with the help of God to end this affair, and let's get into healing. She'll say no because she's gone. You will, if you can find 1 or 2 witnesses, you're going to go back and confront her again. She'll be furious. You're telling other people, well, yeah, I have no choice. I'm following the Bible. If you can get 2 ladies who have the guts that know her, that will come alongside and confront her with you in the second intervention, it's worth a try. Sometimes that works. All right? There's a little more leverage and pressure being applied to her. That doesn't work, you go to the church. What the church leaders are for at this point in the rotation here in the steps, they will try to call her, confront her. She could resist them, but at least you're following the Bible, trying to do that. Now, you go through that within a couple of weeks, and it should be pretty fast. Then Matthew 18 says you pull away from her. She's still in serious sin. You treat her as a Gentile or a tax gatherer, you're going to back off big time. All right? You're not going to, and now you're going to kind of turn the tables. You're not going to do anything legal, but you're going to back off big time. You're going to go into what I call shunning, which is for a good week or two, you're going to act like she doesn't exist, like she cares. She's probably already gone, but at least it's something. You ignore her. She's thinking of life without you, give her a taste of it. I'm through. You're not nice, you don't beg, you don't plead, you're angry, and you're pulled back. Then you think very seriously of separation. Oh, yes, you do. And if you've got kids, you're going to tell the kids exactly what mom is doing because they have a right to know. You'll be careful. If they're younger, you may not be able to do it, but if they're teenage and above, they have a right to know. Not the details, but this is what's happening. You will ask her to leave your home because now legally you cannot remove her. All right, she has every right to stay. The courts could care less, but God cares, and you have a moral imperative to do something. You'll move her out of the bedroom. She can move right back in. You move her right back out. You're not kidding around. She's in sin. She blames you, I'll bet, but God blames her. She is in sin. If you're the worst husband that ever was, doesn't make a difference. She now is the one ending the marriage. So it's step. We give her a chance to respond. If she doesn't, we go to the real tough love, and we try to get her attention, right? That's what I'd say about that. In a marriage, can you take creative sex too far? No. It's a good question. Here's the truth on that. And I'm glad Sandy wrote this question. I doubt it. Man, I wish she did. Anyway, we'll talk in the car. There is, as we read the Song of Solomon, and I wrote the book, Kiss Me Like You Mean It, based on that, there is absolute and complete freedom in the Christian marriage bedroom. You can do whatever you want to do. The sky is almost literally the limit. Now, here's the caveat. There's always a caveat, isn't there? But there's the but. Both partners have to be okay with it and fully engaged in thinking, yeah, I want to try this. Very common to have one partner, usually the man, but it might be the woman, who wants to try something a little outside the box. Honey, we've used the same position for 26 and a half years. Hey, and I'm not saying I don't like it, but can we try something else? A lot of couples do the same thing year after month after day, the same old way, the same foreplay, the same exact ritual. You know what? You might as well just video your sex and watch the video. So, I think that we can mix it up. Now, the key is if you want to do something and your partner's like, I don't want to do that, well then, okay, you're respectful. But you're saying, gosh, can we try it? Would you think and pray about it? And they'll say, yeah, I just did. The answer is no. But certain things your partner is not going to do. Okay, it's just off the table. It's too nasty. They just don't want to do it. But you can bring it up, and there's a lot of other things you can try. And again, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. You've got years to practice, so you have a lot of freedom, but you have to have the buy-in, all right? You shouldn't force the person to do anything. That defeats the whole purpose of sex. You're supposed to be willing partners. But there's tremendous freedom. God makes that clear in the song. They're doing all kinds of wonderful, exciting things. Shulamith and Solomon made love outside, outdoors. The ant bites were tough afterwards, but they really enjoyed it. Again, possibilities. You might want to use, especially if your kids are gone or you have them on sleepovers, and the only purpose of a sleepover is to get all your kids out of the house so you can have sex. Now, that's it. Anyway, but you might try different bedrooms. You might try the dining room table. I'm just saying, whatever you'd like. So you have freedom, but you have to have, people have resistance, and you have to talk them through it. Sometimes it's obvious why they don't want to do something, but it might be something that you could actually talk them through in gentleness and patience. Let's just see if we can try this, and you're very kind, and you talk it through, and there might be a reason why they don't like that. Talk it out. But you can be very creative. Yes. Next. We were not married in the church, but went before God to ask his blessing on our marriage. Well, okay. We believe he did bless our marriage. I bet he did. How do you feel about this? I'm okay with this. I think more and more, and I'm not sure if it's a younger couple, but more and more couples are getting married outside of church. Destination weddings and at the beach. And so there's really nothing wrong with that. Now, it's a great picture to have a pastor. We always wanted to have a pastor involved with our kids. We've got 2 girls that are married. But in fact, both of them did not get married in the church. We thought they'd come to our church and get married kind of like we did when we were kids. They didn't want to do that. Well, okay. And it costs a lot more money, but whatever. But they both loved Jesus, and that we had pastors officiating. And so I think that's just fine. The main thing is that you are getting married in the eyes of God. If you go to the justice of the peace, and as long as it's legal, I don't think God cares that much. You're free. You are not second-class citizen. Your marriage is as great as anybody else's, and this is the right attitude. God has blessed your marriage. He brought you together. And so it doesn't have to be in a church. That's okay, I think. If you're going to go somewhere else, it's fine. As long as you're committed to both to Jesus and it's a marriage blessed by him, you're fine. So I think you're fine. I hope that helps. If my spouse's side of the family is affecting our marriage in a negative way, what a surprise. This happens a lot. What can I do if my spouse doesn't even see it? Yeah, boy, I knew that was coming. Of course they don't see it. They're crazy people. They're used to it. It means nothing to them. What do you mean my mom talks too much or dad's controlling? That's just the way they are, but it's driving you nuts. This is a longer-term proposition. And the basic theory you've got to follow is that your marriage is more important, that partner of yours is more important than those people. Your family, they're infinitely more important. In the Bible scheme of things, top of the food chain. They fall down the list. Now, you're going to take a long-range view here, and you have to win your partner over and let them believe, look, I know this doesn't bother you. It's driving me nuts. I know these are your people. We're not going to break the relationship, but we have to make some changes. And you have to admit what's happening here is I don't feel as important. You're not validating my feelings. I don't know these people like you. And so what we have to do is talk about it and pray about it and convince your partner that there is an issue here. What you grant them is, I know it doesn't affect you. I know why. Kind of like when we're with my people and you don't get it, or I don't get it. So, but we want them to be able to see, and so you give specific incidences. Again, I go with the one-way communication. These conversations, and you know how they go. You bring up the issue of his parents, let's say his family, and if you have a dialogue, you're not going to get anywhere. He feels defensive. These are my people. That's not really happening. One way. Let me discuss this. I want you to think and pray about it. I want you to go before God. God's going to tell that individual that, you know what, your spouse is more important than your parents, if he'd actually listen. And so we try to do it that way, and then you keep bringing up examples, and what you'll have to do is you'll be seeing them, or they'll call you, an event will happen that will drive you crazy. It's what they do. Gently, and you let your spouse know you're going to do this. I want you to start to get it, and so you have to, there'll be plenty of material, I'll bet. So things will happen. You'll say, honey, let's debrief after the meeting. And you might ask first, did you notice anything? I'm just asking generally, did you notice anything that would have been a problem for me during our time with your family? He might say no. But if you're asking that kind of a non-defensive way, maybe he'll realize that when his mother criticized your food, that might have been a problem, or whatever it was, maybe. If he says, no, I didn't, then you say, honey, well, would you just listen to me? I'm just going to say this, and I don't want a response. Again, same thing, no response. I want to just talk about some things that happened and how I felt about it. You do that, if you can, without downing these other crazy people. That's hard to do. Because if you attack them, he's going to defend them. That's his people. Right? So you're going to say, here's how I felt. I'm not sure what they meant by it. You know what they meant by it, but you give them a break. I'm just saying these things happen. Maybe they can't help it, all right? But here's what happened, and this is how I felt about it. Would you just think and pray about that? And I'd like to have a response. So we take a long-term approach, and we can start to turn that ship around. And as you come together as a couple, and here's what you have to do. If it's your family, you have to be the point person. You got to protect your spouse. I was telling a guy just this last week. Young man, he's got a family that's difficult, and they're really hurting his wife, and he's blowing it off, and it's really gouging her. I said, young man, you've got to step up. You've got to man up. This is your wife. And if you think she's right or not, that's your wife. As a matter of fact, she is right, because I believe she seems credible. Side with her, and you have to make a phone call. With her listening, you have to send an email where you will stand up and say, okay, this behavior has to stop. This is my wife. She's upset about this, and you run interference. You know what that will do? That will solve the problem over time, but what it will really do is it will have your spouse just be loving to you. You have protected me. This is hurting the marriage. And so we have to address this. And even if they never change, if you step up every time and set the limit and say, this is not acceptable, and I won't have this, you might have to pull back from them, but you are protecting your marriage. It's not easy to do. All right? But the Bible says leave and cleave. You have to leave those people. Now you have a new family. Next. We're doing well. My wife and I are separated, but working on our marriage. Good for you. You can get it back. How do we make time for spiritual bonding if we don't live together? Yeah, good question. There's nothing wrong with doing this over the phone, all right? And you may have to do that. No problem. You could even, and to a degree, you got cell phones, who doesn't? All right, and so you could even text spiritual things during the day, not overkill. You wouldn't send 40, but gosh, I had my quiet time this morning, and I just want you to know here's what it meant to me, and here's what's happening spiritually. Just a couple of sentences. That's a spiritual bond. They'll receive it. They'll respond. All right. And if you can get the phone going because you're not living together, that's okay to have a conversation on the phone. You can pray over the phone. It's still legal to do that. All right. So you can pray over the phone. Nothing wrong with that. You might write notes or use the phone. And when you are together, all right, I know you're separated, but if you're going on dates or if you're spending some time together, if you're at that point in the healing process, well, then that's a time when you can do it in person. But it's perfectly fine to do it outside of that. Nothing wrong with that at all. And you can actually, sometimes when you're healing, it's even good to do it from a distance. It might actually be a little easier because it's a very intimate thing to do. So you would say, I was reading this verse, and here's what it meant to me, or in my devotions. And gosh, here's what it meant. And maybe they'll say, yeah, well, they might even read that same verse and say, here's what it meant to me. So you can get this going when you're separated. And I think it will be a huge part of bringing you back together. God wants you to not get divorced. He wants you to heal, and he wants you back together. I see the worst cases in my office. The prices I charge, people don't come in when they're okay. All right, this is a problem. Multiple affairs, domestic violence. I think I've seen it all in 7 years. And the God that I've served can change any marriage. He doesn't care what's happened. He's big enough to solve all that. Now, he cares in that he's hurt and offended and grieved for you, but the fact is he is big enough to do it. Any problem in a marriage, because it's a sacred relationship, can be solved, and not just survived, but healed through so you can have a great marriage. I could tell you story after story if I had the time tonight about people that were in horrible shape. Humanly speaking, who are we getting? But with God's help and hard work, they brought it together, and they're just fantastic now. That's what God wants. Let's keep going. How do we know when the time is right to have children? Boy, good question. When the woman says, I want to have a baby. Hey, that's about right. Good question. I would say this. That obviously is one option. And don't deny a woman a baby. I'm just saying. Sandy got 4 because she wanted 4. Anyway, you want to have a very solid marriage because a child, even one child, will blow that marriage out of the stinking water. During the pregnancy, things begin to change, and it's all about the baby. And then when the baby comes, it has to be all about the baby. We have to keep this little thing alive. And from the man's point of view, and the men know what I'm talking about. You lose your wife. Temporarily, you lose your wife. For 18 years, you lose your wife. I'm just saying. Not that long. Because the mom is overwhelmed. She is focused. It's her job, and she just gloms onto the kid, and she has to. All right? So you want to be very solid as a couple. Communication good. You want to be able to handle conflict, know how to do that, because a baby will cause stress, even though they're wonderful. They're difficult too, and many demands. So you're solid, and you are good, and you have talked about the child and what's going to happen. You feel like you're ready. I would seek godly counsel. All right? Don't talk to the grandparents. They want it right now. And we deserve that. But certainly you make it a matter of prayer. God knows everything. He knows the right time. So when you're solid as a couple and you're moving along, you make it a matter, God, would you show us? Would you show us what the right time is? He'll be faithful. He will show you. He knows the right time. And you're listening and reading the Bible and listening to him, and he'll show you what the right time is. If either partner really has a block, well, then that has to be resolved. Because if you have a baby and one person saying, well, okay, I guess we'll have a baby, this is not the way to go into it. Resentment will really grow. Both people have to be really engaged and thrilled and ready, ideally. Good question. These are all good questions. My stepson is extremely disrespectful to me, but my husband also doesn't set an expectation of such or defend me to his son. Yeah, boy, we already covered this. We'll do it again. What can I do? Very common scenario. And this man is missing it. He's probably very tied to his son. And the mistake is, and of course, this stepson's not an idiot. Kids are pretty doggone shrewd. I'll just bet that he doesn't do the disrespect right in front of his dad. Oh, no, he's smarter than that. It will happen when he's not there. And so when he comes home, and this is a danger that men can get into, and women too, if you're the biological parent, you hear the stories, and of course you get two very different stories. Guess who's lying? Your stepson, or your own son. You got to believe that. And so there's no balancing that goes on. You side with your spouse every single stinking time. You've got to. Unless they're crazy. If they're psychotic, okay, different story. If they're known to be a chronic, hideous liar and they lie all the time, different story. That's not what's happening here. So you don't like Solomon, weigh it out and cut down the middle. No, you don't. You say, honey, I'm with you. We've had a conversation, and you'd go to your son. That's what a man needs to do, and it's not easy. And say, son, I'm with my wife on this. And she feels disrespected by you. And of course, he'll deny being disrespectful. And in his explanation, he'll be very disrespectful. I mean, it's incredible. You have to say, you are disrespectful. I'm letting here's the key. I'm letting my wife, your stepmom, define that. And that will always be the case in this home. If she feels disrespected by the nature of that definition, and then you handle it. That protects your marriage, and he'll start to get it. But this kid's getting away with it. He'll just continue and continue and continue until there was nothing left of this stepmom's feelings for that kid. And you know what? Nothing left of her feelings for her husband. That's how Satan works. He's got you on the run. You got to switch it. We got to be a team. I wrote a book called Winning the Parenting War. It is a war. It's you against those not-nosed kids. And they are very clever. I don't care if it's your own kids or stepkids. They're tough. And they will split you because they want what they want. They're selfish. Even if they come to Christ at an early age, it takes a long time to realize it's really about others and not about me. So come together. This man's got to man up, come together, and deal with that kid. The marriage will improve, and so will his behavior. Your wife, once again, is right. Next. We're good. 5 minutes. My wife was unhappy with me because even though I love her very much, that's good, my feelings aren't as strong as they should be. And he's admitting that. How can I overcome this? Yeah, something's going on here. It's a good man, an honest man that can admit he knows they're not quite as strong. Something's happening here, and we got to find out what it is. Because from the wife's point of view, she's devastated. She's hurt because she knows that it's not where it should be. Very likely, it's not really a relationship-based issue. It's probably something in his own personal life. And so he's going to have to be even more honest than this. He probably doesn't know the answer. We're going to find the answer through looking and asking God to reveal it. It could be family of origin issues. He's never really learned how to love someone deeply. His parents had a terrible marriage. It could be a previous marriage. If he had an ex, for example, that's gouged him and hurt him and disrespected him, that's a wound that never goes away unless you address it, heal, forgive, and move on. It transfers to your partner now. This could be the case. If that's the case, we have to do the work. Now, here's what makes it work. Whatever the case is, if it's I'm just guessing, but if it's some kind of a sexual issue or pornography or some secret sin, this must be exposed and it must be dealt with. But together, you're going to do it. Let's say it's some family of origin issue or possibly an ex involved here too, and he's not healed from those wounds, and so they're transferring to you every day. So together, we're going to have to face those and heal through. When this wife is alongside of this man, helping him in support, healing from these issues and praying together and talking it through, then you heal together and you're closer. The love comes back and there's no transfer to her. So that's what I'd say about that. There's something going on. The good news is we can find out what it is. He's honest. There's something wrong here. Well, we're going to find out what it is. Not biochemical. It's something in his past. Now, and again, if the case is, and this man's got to be honest, if this wife is actually doing things and that are causing him to not love her, okay, that has to be expressed. It could be. It would be accidental. It would be inadvertent. It would be malicious. But, honey, and this is tough for a man, there are some things that you're doing or not doing that are frankly getting in the way. Okay, tell her, and then we can solve it. So this couple's on the right track. He's admitting that, I've got a problem. Well, let's find out what it is and work together on it. What can I do when I want to talk, but my spouse starts a fight instead? Yes, some people are pretty clever. This person doesn't want to talk, obviously, and so if they can get you mad, they don't have to talk. All right? Classic male technique. We learn this in camps around the country, and we come back and we do it. Okay, we got to do some exploring here, and of course, you know the pattern. And so we're going to have a one-way discussion where you're going to say, I've noticed a pattern in our relationship. And when I want to talk about something serious, it's obvious that you don't, and so you start a fight. So, and again, don't respond now. I'm just going to say a few things. I want you to think about why that is. We have to find out the why. Why would he be not wanting to be intimate? Why doesn't he want to talk? Other than just being a man, that certainly is part of the reason. But there's other reasons. And it could be some of the things I just mentioned in the other case. Well, I had an ex that treated me bad, or I'm frightened if I'm close to you, then I'll be vulnerable and I won't be in control. Look, there's all kinds of possibilities. I had a mom that mistreated me. There was abuse in my past. This man's only on a level of not wanting to do it. Well, we got to get him lower. Ask him to think, ask him to pray. If you know him well and you know his past, you might have some ideas. And over time you might say, honey, look, I'm not a psychologist, but I heard an excellent one talk. And I'm just saying that here I've got some crazy, maybe some wild possibilities, but I'm wondering if this might be the case. And you might say mother, you might say ex, you might say something else. Is this why? Maybe he fought in his home, it was fighting all the time, or there was no level of intimacy, or let's say he was really intimate with someone, a girlfriend years ago, and when he was wide open, she just killed him, annihilated him. If he hasn't healed from that, he can't be close to you. So all these things are possibilities, and we can find out if we just have a dialogue going on, but one way. Okay, we got 2 minutes. What advice would you give to a couple on their second marriage, each whose marriage is affected by addiction of one of the spouse's adult children? Yeah, boy, that's a heartbreaker. Okay, each is affected by addiction of one. Okay, we have more than one kid that's addicted. Okay, we're going to work as a team. What we don't want to have is these addictions consume your life, and they can destroy your marriage. I've had couples who have spent thousands and thousands and thousands on rehab, and the kid doesn't respond. And if you have all your energy going there, then your marriage just withers and dies, and the other partner kind of resents it. So you're going to work as a team. Your marriage is always more important than those kids, and you're going to try to help them because you love your kids. But the burden is not on you as much as it is on them to change. I would never pay for a rehab for any child unless they are ready to go into rehab. You do not ever, in my opinion, force someone in, because it's a waste of time and a horrible waste of money. And these things cost thousands. You've wasted your time. When they come to you in brokenness and hopefully in the Lord, and they say, I am ready. I am coming to the end of myself. God's spoken to me, whatever, and I am ready. And they're begging you for rehab. That's when you do it. Otherwise, forget it. So as a team, you're going to make your marriage more important. You're going to be in prayer about these kids, but you're not going to let them stay in your home if they're using. You're not going to enable them. You're going to have to do some pulling back. So you work as a team, because Satan's going to try to use those kids to destroy your marriage. That's what he wants. He wants them to continue in addiction, and he wants to destroy your marriage. You have little control over their addiction, frankly, and that's zero. But you have a lot of control over building your marriage. So work as a team, and I would say setting clear boundaries. And if it's warranted and they're in the right frame of mind, then you will help them. But it's always at a distance. That's what I'd say about that. Well, how about one more question? Because it's 9 o'clock. I should be asleep now. Anyway, we would like to clarify, we're not married in a church or by a justice of the peace, or even by a justice of the peace. It's okay. It was just her and I just her and I before God, your thoughts. Well, you're not married then. I'm not sure what's being said here. I guess there wasn't a ceremony. There was no legal I guess, ceremony or document. Well, okay, this is a little trickier. Yes, this is a good clarification. Great, my last question's a killer. Anyway, I see our time is gone. Dim the lights. Okay, here's the deal. I think that on the one hand, Adam and Eve didn't have a justice of the peace. Okay, let's be clear. And so that's okay. But I think for the purposes of society and even for the church, the legitimacy, if there are children involved, the legitimacy of even a justice of the peace, I think you need to have a legal marriage. I think you do. Otherwise, and I'm not sure if this would be in the case in the eyes of God, but I think it would be, in fact, even though you've got your heart's in the right spot, you're not truly married. So I would say, You love each other. This is pretty clear. You love each other. God is blessing you. Why aren't you getting married? Is it a financial issue? Is it some kind of an unwillingness to really be legally married? Is there some reason for this? That's what I want to find out. And I'll bet there are reasons there that they're holding you back, even though you love each other. Work through those issues, and then I would say get married in a legal way. It'll be wonderful, and God will bless you for that. He's not going to hold this against you. He'll forgive you if it's been a sin. I'm not even sure it has been, but let's work through those issues and be honest. Why do we have this point of view? And then let's get married. Whether it's at a church, I would have a pastor involved, and he'd probably be happy to do it. And you could do it on the beach, but if you have a pastor involved, it'll be a wonderful ceremony. And that's what I would say about that. Okay, tricky question, but I think I have my last response wasn't right because we may not have a legal marriage. Yeah, get legally married. There are so many benefits to that, and God will bless you for doing it. That's what I say. Good. Well, wonderful questions.